Hey, everybody, it's Holly again from Sane-ish, the podcast. And we are on episode 2, and we've got Jaibez back with us for episode 2. We've got a series, our series with Jaibez. And this episode, we're going to talk about recovery. And our first episode was with her talking about her story, and so now we're going to move into recovery and what and her thoughts about recovery and peer support, because that's kind of a focus on what she does today. And what she thinks about recovery, what recovery means to her, and then we'll kind of have a conversation about it, and see where the conversation takes us. So hey, Jabez, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me back. It's a pleasure, like always. So, yes, what's up, everybody? Again, this is Jaibez Regalado. I'm so glad to be here with y'all to discuss recovery and self-discovery.
Yeah, that's your business, and
Mhm.
that's what you do, and that's how we met. So why don't you take us, since we left off last time. um we talked about, we kind of talked about, you getting sober and finding the God of your understanding, because he kind of kicked your ass and bullied you into where you are now.
Sure
And
did.
that's where we left off. So how did you get to the business you are in today, which is, well, I guess, because you went to school, right? You went you went and got what happened first? Let me put it that way.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that happened for me to get here, and it's a trip because I was talking about it the other day, and when I talk about it, I'm just like, oh my gosh, like the things that got me here, right? So first off, I want to say that I don't feel like I picked the field. I feel like the field picked me. And so when I say the field, I feel like mental health, substance use, domestic violence, reentry, youth support. I mean, the list goes on, trauma, all that. And so um, early on and growing up, I was diagnosed with multiple learning challenges. And so I tried to go to school several times. I went to school. I originally wanted to go to the Marines. I was going to go to Marines. I was going to go in as 3 ranks higher. I mean, I was gun ho. That was my life and my path. And so with that, I was unable to pass the ASVAB, and then passing the ASVAB, and then I wasn't able to do that, so I went into a depression. Long story short, then I went, moved to California. There's a lot of things in between that. Well, actually, and then I tried to go to college for sociology and psychology. Then they were like, hey, because of learning challenges, they were like, you need to think more realistic about your goals. How about welding? And I was like, how do we get this from that, right? Again, I went into another depression, and felt like I was just kind of spiraling. Then I tried paint and body collision repair. That just wasn't it. I didn't want to get my hands dirty. Then I tried X-ray tech and NCT X-ray tech. Got my certification in that. That just wasn't it. And then that's when I got into truck driving. I'm currently a CDL holder, Class A. Been all over the United States like multiple times. I've been to every state, all 48 states. And so I did that. Then I followed that outside to California, Los Angeles, Hollywood, Long Beach, all that. Then I got hurt with my knee and my back and stuff, and it was just driving a lot. And so, with that being said, long story short, That's when I told you last episode that I was in that domestic violence situationship, and she ended up signing me up for um substance use counseling. It's called like AOD or something like that out in California. So I was like, wow, okay, I can do this. And because I got hurt, um the state of California paid for me for vocational rehab, and I had an amazing supervisor. She was just God sent herself. She paid for like the first 3 semesters until everything got settled. And so I ended up like, I was nervous, I was scared, because remember, I wasn't smart enough for these things, right? I school was academic, and everything was just not what it is for me. But anyways, I ended up excelling really, really like great in my field, substance use and stuff. I feel like this was my language. So
Mhm.
that being said, I went in as an addictions counselor, moved to Texas. Before I moved to Texas, somebody was telling me about this recovery coach thing, and I had no idea. Honestly, I was just signing myself up for shit. I was just like, okay, sign me up. I was already registered for the training, and it's like, let's do it. I did not know what it was. I like I said, I was just trying to transition. So all that, fast forward a little bit, I um, came in as a clinician, and then I came in as a recovery coach. I got hired on immediately. And so as I moved to Texas, my career just exploded. I found myself in my passion even more. Um, Purpose in California, especially because like I got into the field and I was so scared, and I was just like, oh my God, I got to work with people. And all I knew was driving trucks, and all I knew that I wasn't going to mount the ship, but being a truck driver. And I love it. I love being a drivologist, don't get me wrong, but I knew purpose wasn't there for me. So um even my supervisor was like, hey, I knew when I met you that you weren't going to be here that long, because God has bigger plans for you. She just saw the calling over my life. And then when I got into that, like I just kind of, flourished. And I flourished in that, moved down here. I didn't want to move. I ended up getting married, of course, divorced that person. And I feel like God used that person to bring me back to Texas, because I was never going to come back to Texas. Because I came back to Texas and I was being obedient, that's like when I said my career exploded. And here I am. I'm a mental health peer specialist. I'm a reentry peer specialist. I was the first 11 out of the state of Texas to get that. I'm a recovery support peer specialist. I'm a youth specialist. I'm a peer support supervisor. I'm a trainer. I have my own training entity. I have my own businesses. Thank you, Jesus. I'm a youth specialist. I worked in domestic violence, batterer intervention prevention. I've victim advocate. I mean, I have worked in every single modality that there is. I've been in over the specialty courts. I've been, all over the place. So, with that being said, in a nutshell, that is where I am, and where I've what I've done since moving back to Texas. And the list just goes on, but we can take up the whole hour on all the things that I've been doing and doing.
So, so the thing and what's so funny is, what I think is funny is, you can take the girl out of Texas, but you can't take Texas out of the girl.
Oh no, I was owning that Southern Belle. Yeah, I was a proud Southern Belle. Yeah.
You think that you ain't coming back to Texas, but
Yeah.
Texas is going to bring you back.
No, really though. No, I was sad. I lived out there for almost like 10 years, and I was sad, Holly. Like I was living my dream life. I felt the calling of God calling me out there for 8 years. I was sad. I was working for GM Motors, driving trucks. I had an amazing and all this was in Dallas. I had an amazing loft. I had my dream home. I felt the calling of God calling me to California. And then long story short, I didn't know anybody down there. I didn't know nothing. I was disobedient. I went down there in tears. I was scared, shaken, but I trusted in the promises of what I felt deep down in my spirit. And because I did, I ended up walking straight into my calling and my purpose, because that's what I was just going for. I was just like, I had all these little education things going on and just signing myself up for shit, and it just wasn't it for me. And so here I am, because I was being obedient. I was like, oh, my career just exploded. I mean, it just that obedience.
So let me ask you, like, how do you, how did you know, like, you were being obedient? How like, if somebody listening to this, listening to this episode, like, and you know, in their sobriety, um, how how did you know that you were being obedient?
Hmm. Honestly speaking, for because I feel that the God of my understanding, it's relational, right? And I feel that the God of my understanding speaks to individuals in their way. I heard the voice. I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew that I knew. And it was that tug, like I told you last session. He wouldn't leave me alone. He or she, or they would not leave me alone. I felt it deep down in my spirit where I couldn't ignore it. It would mess with my sleep. It just got so loud in my ears and my spirit. And I think with the intimacy of the relational part that I had with my spirituality, I just knew I couldn't deny it. And honestly, I was more afraid not to go than to go, because I know what what the relationship I have with my Jesus, of my understanding, I know that um I needed to be like I was living in my way the whole time, and I was getting closer and closer to God, and I felt it even in my addiction. Like I said, I felt like I knew his voice and I was hearing it. And I always like to tell myself that I'm the 99. I mean, I'm the one, not the 99 that he ran
Mhm.
after and saved. And so I knew that he just wouldn't leave me alone. So the way the Lord speaks to me is in different. I mean, he's speaking all the time. And so I think it was just this tug, and I would always say, "Oh, I'm moving to Los Angeles. Oh, I'm moving to Los Angeles." And everybody told me that I was stupid, that I was ridiculous. I mean, you have no idea how many people just spit and shit all over that vision. But I just still knew that I knew that I knew. I didn't know when, I didn't know how. I just knew eventually
Mhm.
I was going to be gone. And
Yeah.
so I think for me, I just kept my eyes on the prize. I kept my eyes on the vision. And even as much as I wanted to ignore it and tune it out, it just got louder and louder. So I think with that is just I feel like that for me, speaking for that has been my experience where I could not ignore the tug in my spirit. It wasn't like, oh, you're moving to California, and how people think God speaks to them. I feel like God speaks and if especially in the quiet moments, especially when we feel him not around, I know he's speaking louder. I feel like God, either he's speaking, I mean, he's talking, he's screaming, or he's silent. And for me, when he's silent, he's speaking the loudest. And even in my silence and my stillness, he was speaking. So I think that's for me. I can't really express like it for anybody else, but I think if we get
Right.
quiet enough, we can hear and we can see. And I think the God of my understanding, he's clear about what he's clear about. It's us that choose to ignore. I feel like he's always calling them. I mean, many are called, few are chosen, right? And I feel like he's always wanting his children to the best for his children. And I think people are battling with their flesh. I wasn't going to let my mom hold me back, my dad. Oh, my mommy's here. I wasn't going to let anybody. For me, it was just take it all, just give me Jesus. As long as I have Jesus, I'll be okay. And it was just me and him. I remember driving to California. It was hot as heck. I only had one window that rolled down. I looked to the right on my passenger side, and I said, Lord, it's just me and you. You're going to guide me. You're going to lead me. And he did.
So when you like opened your business, how were you able to step out in your faith and open your business? Like, was that like a moment where you like really stepped out in your faith and or was that like pretty was that like a an I don't want to say an easy time, but was that like, or was that not, was that a step into faith for you, or was that just like a, well, I did it kind of
Yeah.
thing?
Everything I do is operated by God's will that I feel that is over my life. I do nothing without his permission or his calling or his tugging. So with that being said, this happened during COVID. I went on sabbatical. COVID shut down the world, right? And then I
Mm-hmm.
remembered, I was like, oh shit. So I got fired. I got fired for being the advocate that I am 3 days before COVID, and I got let go. Then that same week was my birthday, and I was like, "Oh my God, the world!" Like everything was happening, and I was sitting on the porch at some comrade's house, and we're just kind of having porch talk, and I was like, "Damn, what am I gonna do?" Right? Then I was
Mm-hmm.
like, "Oh shit, I'm gonna move to Europe. I'm just gonna move to Europe." And then I was like, okay. So I started booking my ticket like impulsively. And then I remember I was like, well, hell, I need some money, right? To move to Europe. And I was like, wait, I have my CDL. I got my CDL. Like I can go back making my six figures real quick because I'm essential, right? Um, so I did that. I got on Facebook and I went on a truckers little page, and I got my job. It was so crazy how that happened. The next day I flew out to Arizona, Tucson, picked up my truck and just traveled the United States, and I was stacking money, right? So my
Mm-hmm.
vision was to and I was extremely hurt. So let me talk about the emotional part with that. I was extremely defeated by the field. um I was extremely hurt, resentful, brokenhearted by the people that I thought I could respect in the field. I felt like like all these Judases was around me.
Mm-hmm.
I started seeing things that I seeing people for who they were. Like I was in a really bad headspace, emotionally brokenhearted, because like my eyes could not unsee what I've seen in this field. And I'm not trying to pan a negative picture, but this field is very toxic, right? There's a lot of narcissism, a lot of egotistic people, and I'm not saying all of them. It's very few that you actually can meet people in agencies too. A lot of money hungry people. So I
Which,
was
let me stop you. In which field? In the recovery field or in
Yes,
the?
the recovery field,
Okay. Okay.
mental health, substance use, all that, right?
Okay.
So that's my truth. Okay. It's not the truth. That's my truth. That's been my experience. And not my all experience, right? But that was my experience then, and there's still some truth to that today. And I'm gonna share this, and that's gonna circle around. And so I left. I went on a sabbatical. I was angry. I was hurt. I was brokenhearted. I was just kind of disgusted at what was going on, the robbery and the preying on the vulnerable of participants and addiction, and how I seen a lot of people just robbing and stealing these grants and using this money for personal gain, and this and that. Anyways, and like I said, my career exploded. I was in some heavy rooms, and I was around some well-respected people that, come off like they do. And I've seen some things, right? So I went over the road and I just cried, 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 prayed. And I went on a sabbatical. And I was just like, one day I was driving somewhere across this country, and it just dawned on me. I was like, I felt the Lord speaking to me, you can do this, do it on your own, because I felt very stripped and alone. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, what? And he put that on my heart and my spirit, like so hard and so heavy. And I was like, and I've always felt like I was meant to build something, uh,
Mm-hmm.
at this vision. Long story short, I was driving, and I just like, oh my gosh, I can do this alone. I have the credentials. Like, I know how to do this. He prepared me for this because I did work with these people. I didn't have this knowledge. I don't need them. I don't need nothing from them, right? I can do this. And so I was like, oh my God, I had a come to Jesus moment. And it was almost like he high-fived me in the face and said, bah, get out of yourself. Focus, you know? So I was like, okay, Lord, give me a name for this. Give me a name for this. And then I contacted the state and I was like, okay, what do I got to do? It was just so much confusion, but the Lord kept revealing these things to me, I felt, and giving me vision and insight, right? Insight inside of me. He giving me this enlightenment, this light. And so I got out of my funk, out of my depression, and I started being like, oh man, let me contact the state, TC BAP. Let me ask what I can do to become my own entity. Let me see what I can do to become my own business, become my own 501c3. Like, let me do this. And I didn't have the time to do it. So I hired somebody because I had a lot of money during that time. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just driving and I was like, go on and do it, figure it out for me. Boom, right. And this is what I want. And then I did a lot of research on YouTube University. And I was just trying to like just operate in faith. And then they said, oh, yeah, you can become your own entity. Oh, yeah, you can become a PSS, a peer support supervisor. Oh, yeah. And I was just like, whoa. So one day I was driving another day and the Lord gave me, because I always used to say, oh, this is recovery and self discovery. And I went through several names, Holly. And I
Mm-hmm.
was just like, no, no, that ain't it. Right. And then one day I was driving across the country in some state, and in the wilderness. And I said, recovery and self discovery. I was like, oh my God, because I was trying to create my podcast too, right? Because I was
Yeah.
in like names of all that because names are very, important for me. I just don't give shit names, right? Because
Right.
I want to build on that, right? And so he gave me my eyes, my truth. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's me because it's my eyes, my truth. I'm tired of minimizing things. And then he gave me recovery and self-discovery. And then I have my little other entity is the recovery plug because I like to say I'm the plug. I'm like, what you need? A dime of this, a 20 of that, like a 20 of hope, like an ounce of, what do we need, right? Because I like to look at myself as a resource broker, in the community and stuff. And so all that to say, that's how that was created in a nutshell. And I just started like I hired a colleague of mine because I was really trying to help people with finances. I was like, man, if I can just whoever can build this, whoever can do that, right? Because I was just trying to give people money, and help them out in those moments. And then a young lady reached out to me from California. She's like, hey, I know how to do this. I'm like, okay, cool, let's do it. Boom. And so she kind of helped me. And then that's when I started seeing it. And I was like, oh man, I can do this to myself. And then boom, here I am today. You,
That's awesome. That's
Mhm.
awesome.
Yeah.
So, and so I guess I should say too that um, Jay has her own. Excuse me. She has her own business in San Antonio, and she does have her own podcast called My Eyes, My Truth, which is on Apple Podcasts.
Every
And
major platform. Yeah.
okay, yeah, it's on every platform,
Mhm.
right?
Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
and and so and recently she just got accepted to go back to college. What do
Hmm.
you, and what are your what are you going to be doing when you go back to college?
Yeah, so I am the first generation to get a college degree out of both sides of my family, and I say that proudly, and it took me a lot to own that and say it out loud without feeling like I was boasting and bragging, right? But I was like, you know what? I earned this shit. I just
That's right.
so anyways, I have been accepted to Angelo State University, which is great. I been a great experience. I'll be going for my bachelor's in social work, then I'll be going for my master's, and I will become the first doctor in my family. So I'll be getting my doctorate in social work as well. So they have the whole program there, and I am extremely excited. I started
That
in
is
August, and I'm scared.
well. I mean,
Yeah, I'm
who
scared,
wouldn't
but I'm gonna
be?
do it shaking and all. Yes.
Well, that's who wouldn't be? I
Mm,
mean, that's. I think that's probably that's a normal human reaction to all that stuff. But I'm sure you'll be just fine. You'll be
mhm.
just So, but that is awesome. And don't let somebody tell you that you can't do it, because you've obviously gotten this far. So I
Yeah.
think you will be just fine.
And you know what? I think it's me being that somebody that I can't.
Yeah, exactly. It's
So that's,
probably, yeah,
yeah.
it's usually us standing in the way of ourselves is usually
Mhm.
what it is. What it is, you know. But okay, so let's kind of talk about peer support
Mhm.
and what that is, because that's how you and I met. I went to, because I'm an RSPS and an MHPS, and for those who are listening and watching, an RSPS is a recovery peer support specialist, and an MHPS is a mental health peer support specialist. Jay was my recovery peer support specialist instructor, and so that's how I know her. Now
Mhm.
she is also a peer support supervisor, which means she can. Now she's not mine, but that means that she can um, make sure people or confirm people's hours, certify people's hours for the state of Texas for their certification hours, um, and other things. Um, and then why don't you explain the other peer support certifications too, like, for youth certification for family,
Mhm.
um, and for, isn't there one for incarceration too?
Mhm. Yeah, so there's the certified family partners. I think that's the only one I
Yeah.
don't have. So there's that which they work with the family. Let's say you have a child that has mental health challenges, and so you're able to get that certification and work with the families. Let's say you want to kind of navigate them. You have that lived experience. Let's say maybe your child or family member or whoever, you have that lived experience with working with them. And so you're like, hey, you know what? I want to go back out and help other families navigate in this system and utilize my lived experience, etc. And then there's the reentry, which are those that have uh, been incarcerated for, it could be a day, 24 hours. I mean, as long as you've had those bracelets around your wrists, you meet the qualifications, because we are no one to limit anybody to say, oh, you haven't been to prison, you haven't been to jail, right? Trauma's trauma. Um, I also say that you can use your RSPS, your recovery support peer specialist, as well at going into, the jails and all that. So you don't necessarily quite need the RSPS, but it's great to have and great to have the knowledge. But you can do the same things with the RSPS. Um, so yeah, there's not an actual certification for the youth. I've just worked with a lot of youth, had the training and all that. So you have to work with the youth in a different dynamic. There may be one, so don't quote me on that. But if there is, let me know. But I've worked with a lot of youth out in Austin and just around the state of Texas and stuff. I'm a life coach and a RAP facilitator, one a wellness recovery action plan. So I just kind of utilize all that um, for the youth, for the parents, for the the spouses or family, etc. So but yeah, there's, and so I'm able to supervise people going into the field. People need to get their 250 hours, and I think it's a great certification to have. For me, I love it because I remember early on, I was like, this shit can't be for nothing. All this crap that I've been through cannot be for nothing. Now I look at this and I'm like, man, there's actual certifications for every single one of these things. And to be able to you have to have lived experience. So I'm just like, all the shit that I went through, now I get paid for it. And I say that humbly and lightly. And I thank God for that, because it wasn't just wasted. Like, it's a trip. I think about it all the time. I'm like, wow, how awesome is that? Because as a clinician, of course, that's different. I am in that clinical, I have that clinical part as well, but this is more peer to peer. This is more person centered. This is more trauma informed. This is more like, hey, I'm one of you and you're one of me. And, we can share these experiences together, and I can tell you straight up if you're bullshitting, and if you're, BS in the system or whatever, because I am just one of you trying to get it together. And we are proud of that as peer specialists and peer professionals.
Yeah. Now, how long have you been doing it? How long have you been a peer?
I want to say probably about 15 years, maybe longer.
Okay.
I feel like I've been doing it too, way before I even started doing it.
Yeah, probably.
Right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But let me ask you, do you, back when you were a kid, do you wish that you had a peer support specialist to talk to?
Absolutely. I feel like I would have been great with a mentor. Um, I feel like a mentor, I mean, and that's kind of, that cheerleader, that mentor, that person that has that lived experience, being able to support me in that. I feel like I would have been great with a mentor. I feel like I definitely could have benefited from a peer professional, but I
Mm-hmm.
think in my journey, I needed more as a teenager. Maybe I needed more of like that big sister. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
that would have benefited me um, a lot more than the peer specialist in my journey
Yeah, yeah,
for me. So
yeah,
that's where I was needing it. I was needing a lot of that in school. That mentor that just believed in me and didn't have any catches.
yeah. I was just curious, just because peer support has kind of um, blown up,
Mm-hmm.
in uh, I want to say recently. It's in our lifetime. It wasn't back in the day. You know, at least when I was growing up, we didn't
Yeah.
have it. It
It
wasn't
was
as
definitely there because his peer support's been around for like 40 something years longer, right? It
yeah,
just
but it
wasn't
was
talked about.
yeah, it wasn't like in your face like it is today. Like it
Correct.
wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't like. I mean, I certainly didn't know about it. But I and frankly, I don't know if I would have used it. Um,
Exactly.
so, but I'm glad that it's available today. I'm glad that it's out here today um, for people, because I think with the way the world is today, that a lot of people are. It's in my opinion, a lot of people tend to be, just because of social media, a lot of people tend to isolate themselves because of social media and not connect. They
Mm-hmm.
think they're connecting because of social media, but they're not. They're
Mm-hmm.
not connecting human to human, like person to person, in person to person. Um, and I think that we as humans need that connection. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and all this is my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it helps to know that you're not alone, and then realizing that people do they can identify with things that you've been through, and life
Mm-hmm.
experiences and stuff like that.
Yeah, for
I do
sure.
I do believe that peer support has a a purpose, and we do have a purpose, just like you've been referring to throughout this whole time. That's why you went through what you went through.
For
That's your
sure.
purpose, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. I think it would have definitely been needed. If I would have, like I said, I was signing myself up for shit, so I probably would have ended up, signing myself up for peer support, not even knowing it, right? So
Right.
I think it would have been great. Like I think it's a great asset. I think if it's done authentically, if we stick to the mission and the vision of why peer support, peer professionals were created, I think it's really an asset for those needing it, right?
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. And how, so you were involved in Dallas, but then you moved to San Antonio. And so now are you involved in the ROSC in San Antonio too?
ROSC, the Ross.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
I was a chair member. I mean, I was one of the chairs for a small time. I've stepped away
Okay.
for that, but honestly, I'm not. I think I would like to be, but I feel like there's definitely some growth that I think that it needs. Uh,
Hmm.
and I think at my capacity that I have, I want to make sure that my time is, um, you know,
Better utilized.
yes, yeah,
Well, especially if you're going to go back to school, you probably aren't going to have time to do that.
yeah. I would love to. Like I said, I think it's great. I probably have a vision for creating something outside of the ROSC. And there's a bunch of little tap meetings and there's a bunch of community meetings, but my vision is to create something for recovery and self-discovery, and um, to really focus on the things I can change, not the things I can't, with
Right.
this particular agency that God has given me.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, what do you see as far as the future of recovery? Um, what are your hopes for the future of recovery?
In general, or for the peer professionals, or uh
Yeah, well, let's just start out with peer support. What are your hopes for peer support?
I think my hopes will be to have healthy people in the agency, in the community, that are again being authentic and authentic to the mission and the vision of why peer support was created. People that don't just get in and because they just want a title and say, "Oh, look at me," right? The ego.
Yeah.
I think if people continue, if peer professionals continue to work on themselves instead of getting to the field and then let that be it, and not no longer feeling like they arrived because I have a title, I have the certification. I do see a lot of that. So
Mhm.
hope for peer professionals is to be authentic to what peer services is,
Mhm.
to do no harm, because I can see how that can get, to actually utilize peer support for what it is. My hope for peer support too is for these agencies to hop on board and not just have peer support um for money, right? Because, oh, the grant gave us money. I mean, we got a grant and now we need peer support, and so let's hire all these people, and we don't even have any idea what peer support is, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
I feel like it's the state and this movement is really happening, and now we have billing codes, now we have grants, right? Now we have job openings, career paths. And so one of my pet peeves is when um these agencies are just kind of saying, yeah, let's hire you, and then they're asking their peer providers to do unethical things, because they're just trying to fill a role. And my hope is that peer support is utilizing the money and the funding for what it's actually been granted for, rather than doing, unethical things with it, to actually
Yeah.
provide quality services and not just checking boxes. And my hope is that we continue growing as individuals, not just as pure professionals. To continue seeking help holistically, support, therapy, whatever pathway it is, like work your recovery and don't just stop because you have a title.
Yeah. So do you see the industry of peer support like expanding in different like venues, like because I just recently saw here in Austin that there were peer support positions now in Travis County,
Mm-hmm.
like in the juvenile,
Mm-hmm.
um, in juvenile. Um, so, do you foresee peer support um, expanding in different areas, in different capacities
Oh yeah, for sure.
of
I
different,
mhm.
types of um, places, in different types of areas?
Yeah, certainly. I do feel it's spreading like a wildfire, I'm glad to hear that there's more um peer support going on, and person to person, and people utilizing their lived experience. I do see it. To answer your question, yes ma'am, I do see it um expanding, and it's all over the country. Europe
Yeah,
has, I mean, it's
yeah,
all over the states now. Are they utilizing it? Are they behind? A lot of times, yeah, I get people reach out to me from different states, and I look at the states and I'm like, y'all have it, but they're not really having like these trainings and these a lot of the things that we have here in Texas. It's expanding out in Mexico, it's expanding in Europe. I mean, it's expanding in every state, like it's there. So that, going back to your original, like your question before that, what is my hope? My hope is that we grab this by the horns and be intentional, strategic with this, and recognize the people that we're touching and impacting.
yeah,
People need
yeah,
this. Hmm.
yeah. So what is your personal view on recovery? Like what does recovery look like to you? And when I say recovery, I don't mean just like alcohol and addiction. I mean like what does recovery mean to you?
Hmm. Probably everything that recovery means to everybody else. And I say that because every time people say, "Oh, recovery is this recovery," I'm like, "Yeah, I get it." But in a nutshell, recovery means to me is it's that recovery and self discovery, for sure. Because I feel that I'll always be self discovering parts of me. Recovery means to me is that I wear my bruises, wear my cuts, and wear my scars like a badge of honor, because even though I still am healing from those, I'm proud of who I am. I'm proud of the work that I've done. Recovery means healing from my trauma, from my inner wounds, from, you know, the inner childhood, discovering things about me, becoming a better woman, and becoming the woman that God has created me to be in general. Constantly evaluating myself, and just searching and making that inventory, and striving and thriving to be in my purpose and in my mission. Because I know the last time I close my eyes and take my breath, I got to know that I have fulfilled my duty here on this earth, whatever that is, to be authentic, to be genuine, to be transparent, to be accountable, to be honest, be a thriver, to be the best aunt that I can be. That is one of my favorite roles, to be the wife, the best wife that I can be. Like, so recovery means to me is truly that self-discovery, that searching, that constantly blooming and blossoming, and watering and uprooting my soils and my roots, and the list just goes on. But like, I think recovery is more than just substance use and mental health. I think
Mhm.
that word recovery, and a lot of people just hear, oh, recovery from substance use and mental health. I always say, Holly, I am in recovery, and it is not just mental health and substance use. I'm in recovery from my damn self, like from self, you know like, it's me, I'm the common denominator. Like, it's me, I have a mirror right in front of my face. Like, it's me and me. It's my thoughts, my impure thoughts, my anger, my rage, my guilt, my shame, my hurt, my pains, my grief. I mean, it's me. Now, I'm not going to minimize everybody else's shit that impacts me too, but it's me. I'm
Yeah.
in recovery from me, and the defaults of my character and how that was built, and the lies that have been told against me, the tongues that have risen against me, the betrayal, the hurt, the pain. I mean, life, love, joy, getting out of survival. I mean, I think it's just holistically me, recovery and self-discovery in a nutshell.
Oh, good. Yep. It's definitely me, but I get the most joy out of seeing and helping other people, uh, find their truth
Mm,
too. You
yeah,
know, it's very rewarding. Well, it can be very challenging, but it can also be very rewarding. So,
sure.
um, and especially when they're able to get it, and
Mm,
then be able to, you know, um, blossom themselves,
yeah.
and move and you know open their own businesses, and get their degrees and all that kind of stuff. So very rewarding.
For sure.
So, all right, well, so next episode we're going to talk how about breaking the stigma of you know all of it, breaking the stigma of alcoholism, addiction, mental health, um, chronic illness, because that's something that you and I deal with on a daily basis. Um, all of that stuff. Because I think there's a lot um, that people may or may not know about. A lot of fear, um, that sometimes to me is ridiculous. That you know probably need that you said at one point, which I agree, we need to normalize, you know,
Mm, mm-hmm.
um, because, you know, we just need to talk about it
Mm, for sure.
in order to get to that point to normalize it. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be the next episode. And, and then, um, and then we'll wrap it up. But anyway, Jay, thank you so much for talking about recovery and your business. And so that everybody knows, I will be putting, Jay's information, and links, um, in her bio and all that, in, in the comments and stuff, so that you can get in touch with her. And she, and on her Facebook page, on her business Facebook page, she always puts some great information, um, for like webinars and stuff happening in San Antonio as well as other places.
Mhm.
Workshops and all that kind of stuff that you can attend that are really good. So I would highly suggest that you check it out. So anyway, Jay, thank you so much for your time again. I greatly appreciate it. And we will look forward to the next episode. So y'all have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye. See you later.